Thought I'd bring to you today a tutorial about hands. So your hands in downward facing dog, your hands in arm balances, forward folds, anytime that you have your hands on the ground in yoga. So these are little things that I've just found have actually been transformative in my practice. Getting a good connection to the ground through the hands can lead you up to some really strong, successful postures. And growth in general. I think it's a good thing to start with. So when it comes to your hands, often in a downward facing dog, as a teacher, I have experienced myself and noticed that there is a tendency to roll to the outer edges of the hands and also push back into the wrists. And this looks a lot like a lazy index finger and thumb. And we sometimes cue root down the index finger and thumb mounds, and we really mean it. So I want to break down the parts of the hands that can sometimes be confusing. So you want the tips of your fingers and your thumbs to claw into the floor to the point that they almost turn white. So if someone was to come around and try and lift the fingers off the floor, they can't. There's a really strong connection through the fingertips. And then there is a very slight gap underneath the knuckle, the mid-knuckle of the fingers. And then you want to connect the mounds into the floor. And the mounds are the point of the finger that connects to the palm. So the hand isn't fully flat to the ground. And often when we think of it being flat to the floor, when you go up into a downward facing dog, there can be a little bit of a lean back. And the index finger and the thumb are the first things to disconnect to the ground. If we can really root those guys into the floor, there's a sense of pushing. And we pretty much push all the time in yoga. There's never any pulling motions. It's always a push, which is a bit of a shame because we need both. But that index finger and thumb mound connecting into the floor, you'll feel almost like a contraction slightly, a muscular contraction in the pectorals and the chest, and this little lift in the underarm, which will help protract the upper back slightly, and you'll engage your serratus anterior and all these muscles in the back that will help you flourish in all these other postures. So I want you to bring the hands to the floor, just kneel, claw down your fingertips. My teacher Sienna likes to call it tiger claw. So you really are trying to really claw into the floor, claw into your prey, or your food, or whatever else that the tigers would do right now, so that you can be really mobile and agile. You claw them down, and then you root down the index finger and the thumb mounds in particular, but all of them really, and just check it out. So the hands look really active, and they don't necessarily look super pretty, but they're active, and the forearms are switched on, the upper arms are switched on, the shoulders are engaged, the chest is engaged, the back's engaged, and the abdominals become engaged, and you just kind of like tick off the body. So a lot of the time it starts with what is underneath you. It starts from the floor and then through the palms and the fingertips. So that's what I would then cue in terms of having really strong hands. And I don't know about anybody else, but sometimes when the hands aren't really engaged and you're moving around the mat, the hands are kind of slipping around, and we've all struggled with slippy mats. And one way to get around a slippy mat is to engage with the hands even more. So if you can claw down the fingertips, press down the index finger and thumb mound and everything else, try and see if you can do like a full vinyasa, like a sun salutation, without moving the hands at all. Put your focus into the hands, into the fingers. So when you come into like a downward facing dog with strong hands, you may notice that the shoulders become more active as well. So claw the fingers down, push the floor away. There's that really strong sense of pushing. Drop the head through the arms, and actually the shoulders do lift up towards the ears, and that's not a bad thing. You don't want to sort of have them shrugged up right next to the ears. There is a sense of relaxing the shoulders slightly. And then you want to tilt the tailbone high. And this, with the hands nice and strong, is what's going to help you sustain this position for a long time, because downward facing dog is tough. So then I want you to inhale, rise up onto your tiptoes, keep clawing the fingers into the floor, round yourself forward into a high plank, squeeze the legs together, and you're in a high plank. You can see your hands, you can see your thumbs and your fingertips. Take that opportunity to look at them, sort them out, connect with them, And then you take your chaturangas from there. Keep the hands really solid. Don't flip the hands around. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Claw the fingers into the floor. Exhale, tuck the toes, push back, downward facing dog, and the hands haven't moved. So you can think about this as also when you come into like a forward fold and eventually into something like a crow pose. Really strong. Through the hands, you push the floor away, little bend in the elbows, knees come up to the triceps, and then you can take your forward fold from there. So if you take your attention to the hands in a lot of these poses, it may support you more. So you start from the foundations. If you can't build a building with weak foundations, that's kind of how I see it very often. That's what I'm going to say about the hands today. Tips of the fingers, mounds of the fingers, mounds of the hands. Root those guys down, push away, get everything involved, the upper arms, the chest, the shoulders, the back, and you are ready for a really strong practice. So that's what I'm going to say today. Thank you for listening. Have fun, see what happens. Namaste.